All right, guys, we'll get started here today. Welcome back from lunch. I hope you guys found a good place to go get some food and are ready to start our afternoon sessions. Today we've got Mike Caton, who's going to be a coach, or he's a coach for us. He's got over 22 years of coaching experience at the high school level, the collegiate level, and is currently doing some work with instructional stuff. He's got his master's degree in exercise sports physiology, in sports sciences, and is the author of the American College of Sports Medicine. Is an author for the American College of Sports Medicine. He's USATF Level 1 and Level 2 certified in sprints, hurdles, and relays, and he's a certified EXOS performance specialist. Like I said earlier, he's been coaching at many different levels: middle school, high school, club, and collegiate. And he's going to teach us about his ACE method, coaching method. So, welcome, Mike.
Okay.
And
Thank you. So, it's funny because typically I teach about hurdles. When we were setting up for me to be here, Johnny says, well, "Can you coach it? Can you teach anything else?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, I've been a head coach in high school, so I could teach whatever you want." And we came up with some titles. And I would imagine that I was just going to have a bunch of brand new coaches in here who didn't know anything. When I look, you guys just look like a bunch of veterans in here. So I need to know who I'm talking to. So let's see here. How many people have coached or in their first year of coaching? Very few. Okay, how about less than 5 years? How about between 5 and 10 years? Okay, more than 10 years. Okay. So I'm immediately a little intimidated. Okay, so it's actually kind of a good thing because it was brand new and I've never given this particular presentation before. And it's all in my head, and it wasn't until honestly last night where I started putting it into a slide presentation. And as I was putting the two together, I started changing what I wanted this session to be, and I think it's probably going to work out well. Okay, so because what I was originally planning is, and I could still go this way, but I was planning on just saying this is how I think your workout should go each week and how you should evolve your workouts, like how you cycle them throughout the season in order to peak at the end. My feeling is that you guys probably already know that stuff. And I didn't know that, but it's, like I said, it's kind of fortuitous. I started putting it together, and as I was putting it together, I thought, you know what would really excite me if I was a coach sitting in here was to hear somebody give, like, the nuggets of truth that they've learned over the years. Some of you, it would be mind-blowing. Some of you, it might only be one little thing that you glean, but it's still one little thing that you walk away learning. But I also did imagine that between these two general coaching sessions that I'm doing, I might have some veterans in here. And so I kind of put it together in a way that there's even opportunities inserted in there and also at the end where we might be able to share amongst ourselves. Because the thing is, you guys probably already know this by now, it took me a little while to figure it out, is there's not one way to do things. And there's a whole lot of, if you could look at the finals in the Olympics and see 8 or 9 people lined up across there, and all of them have been coached differently. So there's not just one way to do things. And so I would imagine that if I bring something up, half of you are going to be going, oh, I do it differently, and I think my way's good. You might even have a chance to share amongst each other, okay? So in addition to how I was introduced there, which thank you for that, by the way. Yes, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree related to sports sciences. I'm going to go through my story briefly so that you understand who I am and who I'm not. I don't want to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. Okay, I went to school originally thinking I was going to teach and coach. And somewhere along the lines, I changed gears because I met an exercise physiologist and I thought, that's really cool. So I got my master's degree, and I spent a lot of years, I don't even remember now, 10 to 15 years in the industry, sports performance, before before there were sports performance places like there are now, like where I'm, they're all over the place now. Back in 1988, there was nothing like that. So I was doing that kind of thing, and which kind of also in fitness and a lot of training and training athletes and blah, blah, blah. Did that for a lot of years, but that's very, at least back then, very unstable. Your income was very unstable. And I'm married to somebody who's very risk adverse. And she'd rather make half the money that I was making as long as it was steady than money that went like this. So for the sake of our marriage and happy home life, I became a teacher. And I got a job at a middle school. This is back in 1999 now, right? And so I get a job, 2001. 2001, I get a job at a middle school, and I'm interviewing for a science teaching position. And they said, "Can you coach?" I said, "Yeah, and coach, what do you need?" And they said, "We need a track coach." I said, "Sure." That was the sport I did when I was in high school. I love track. It's always been my favorite. So I became a middle school track coach, and instantly I knew what my calling was. Some of you already did. And it was like, yeah, it was just amazing. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I was born to do. I ended up starting a club team, so I did club track as well. But the very next year, I changed schools and I became the head coach at a private Christian school. This is all in Colorado Springs, by the way. And it was a 3A level school. I know here you have 3 levels. In Colorado, you have 5 levels, and we were in the middle. And within our level, our school was a small 3A school. So we were competing against schools that are 2-3 times our size. And so to let you know how that evolved, I walked into it thinking, oh, this is going to be great, right? I was actually kind of nervous to coach a high school kid. I thought they're going to be great, they're going to be such high level, blah, blah, blah. And I was quickly disappointed by what I walked into. It was what I thought was weak, wimpy. Kids didn't have any real heart, no discipline, just didn't love it. Didn't love it at all. In fact, I was very disappointed, and I thought, if I'm going to keep doing this, because I didn't want to quit. Part of me wanted to quit, but I thought, no, this just feels like something I was made to do. So I thought, I'm just going to make it better. So I instituted some changes, and very quickly we evolved into a very good team. We were kind of in Colorado, in our division, even though we were small in our division, we were a powerhouse. I never won a state championship. I did get second twice, but we were always one that you had to take very seriously, right? This is a picture of our team, and there's a story behind this picture, which I'll get into in a little while. Just some pictures I just found and needed to put together and put on the slides. Always strong hurdling, which is the reason why. Is anybody going to go to one of my hurdling classes? Okay, you hear about it then. Is anybody coming to my other class tomorrow? Okay, it'll be very different than this. All right, so anyway, the short of it is, I coached for about 15 years, had a really successful high school career, ended up doing 2 years at a 5A school, the big school, had some success there, helped teach hurdles at a college, a local college. Anyway, it's all mostly because of the hurdling, had a tremendous amount of repeatable success, and I realized that there's a lot of coaches who didn't know what I knew about hurdling, and because I kept getting athletes come to me for help because they said my coach can't help me. I even had coaches saying, "Will you come to my school and help my hurdlers?" So I created this business called Ace Method Coaching, and again, primarily about hurdling, but it's more to it now. I brought on a high jump coach. We do running stuff. I also have something for track coaches, meaning I have a training plan that I sell with full 12-week, all the workouts you need to succeed in track coaching, all the different events. But anyway, I have a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is It's got over 12,000 followers now. I wanted to show you something, but I want to show you only because I'm not here just to talk about this. But I wanted to show you in case you wanted to know more about what I'm teaching, and if you thought, I want to hear it again. I do have these 3 videos here. I have they're about just track coaching. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, you can find in here on my YouTube channel. You just go to YouTube, Ace Method Coaching. You'll find them in there. And there's a playlist called Track Coaching, okay? Just know that. So you don't need to take notes. You can just sit back and relax. Okay. Okay, just for some proof here. So, over 30,000 followers between the different social media channels. The 70 national and state champions are only related to hurdling. I mean, that's how many good hurdlers that I've coached over the years. If I were to count how many athletes I brought to state championships in track and field, I don't know. I mean, it'd be in the hundreds probably. I'm not sure. But anyway, so as I told you, I came here thinking I was going to do this, how to plan your season for success. It's still going to be what you're going to get, but I think maybe a better title would be how to go from a wimpy team to a perennial powerhouse. To me, that's more appealing, and it's kind of the gist of what I want to talk about. So, here's an outline of what I'm going to cover. Because, back to my story. So I walk into this program very unimpressed with their athletes and unimpressed with the program and the discipline, or the lack of discipline, and the culture, terrible culture. I'll tell you the thing that bothered me the most is we go through our season and we get to, it wasn't the state meet, it was the regional championship at the time to qualify for state. And what I kept seeing all season long, same thing all the time, we may or may not have a 4x4 relay going on that day, but if we did, there was always kids trying to get out of it, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about. They were trying to get out of it, so sometimes we'd have so few we would just cancel it and go home early or whatever, but we finally put one together for the regional championship. And it was really interesting because we put together a team that was pretty decent. And they were running the race, and my assistant coaches, who were all the veteran high school coaches, and I was new to high school coaching, they were there tallying up all the points, trying to figure out, we might even be able to win district or region, whatever it was. And they actually, our relay team finished, I don't remember what we finished, but they tallied it all up and found out we actually won the meet. And I was like, wow, that's great. We turned around to the team, and there's no team. The team had all left. And I thought, this sucks. Well, there's no team here at all. This is just people coming to do a track meet and leaving whenever they want. So I thought, okay, we're changing things for next year. So here's what I did. Well, actually, I'm going to go through what I'm going to talk about today, because things definitely changed. I'm going to tell you the expectations that I put in place. I'm talking about aptitude testing, overcoming injuries, and the part that I was originally going to talk about, like a week at a glance, a season at a glance. Okay, so this is what I did the next year. Because, again, some of you could relate to this as well. Mid school, track was not a priority at this school. Can any of you relate to that? Okay. It was, so kind of wealthy kids at this school, I've been at all kinds of schools now, so I know all kinds of kids are wimpy these days. But anyway, that's what I attributed it to at the time. But so that kind of kids all in club sports. So volleyball, every girl who's halfway decent of an athlete was playing volleyball. The others were playing soccer. In boys, it was a basketball school and a soccer school, club stuff. I could not get anybody to run track. So we were always desperate to grab kids, right? So I thought, okay, I could either get a bunch of kids who are halfway into this, or would I be happier if I just had 5 or 10 kids who took it seriously and we were a small but mighty team? That's what I decided I'm going to do. I'm just going to go for a small and mighty team. That was my plan going in. So I set up a bunch of rules. Had the parents meeting, and I said, here's what we're going to do. And I told them my whole story that I told you about our 4x4 relay team the year before. I said, I'm not doing it. I said, if you want to be on this team, if you want your kid to be on this team, here are the rules. And the harshest rule that I put out here is everybody goes to every meet. They show up at the same time at the beginning of the meet. They're all going to do their warm-up together. And everybody is going to stay till the end of the meet for the 4x4, and we're not leaving until everybody's done. Period. I said, if you want to be on this team, these are the rules. Now, I'm a reasonable person, so if you have anything that comes up, let's say, for example, somebody's getting married and Johnny has to go to a wedding. I understand that, or who knows what. If your child is not going to be able to stay for the whole time, I need you to send me an email, and I need it by Monday of the beginning of the week. Other than that, they're going to stay, or they're not going to be on my team. Everybody agreed. Shockingly, I was shocked. And I put other rules in place. One of them is that not only are we staying until the end for the 4x4, everybody on the whole team, because I saw another team do this and I was really impressed by it, everybody is going to go as a whole team and line up at around the 300 mark with 100 meters to go, and they're going to cheer on their team. And we put together this type of a chant, and when, basically it was this, is as they were running around, with our person at about the 150 meter mark, they would all start going, whoa, and it would build up, build up, build up, and as soon as they got around to the 300 mark, they would just chant their name like, Jonah, 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 and Jonah would get all energized and sprint and hand off to the next person and do that again. I am not exaggerating. So we go from 1 year, and if there's anything you can walk away as a nugget, like going, this is what I want to do, this is it. So I told you what it was like the year before. The next year, the first year we did this, we won the state championship in the 4x4. And the year after that, we became a 4x4 powerhouse. In the next 12 or so years that I was at that school, we won state probably half the time. And if we weren't winning state in the 4x4, we were one of the top in there, always battling to win the 4x4. We were like terrors. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, they're back. Every year we were, and I don't, just because it just became the thing at our within that school, and within our program, it was like, well, if I'm going to be here, I might as well be in the premier race and be on the premier relay team and have my name chanted all the time. And I know it seems really simple, because it is, but it worked. And so it changed the whole culture of our program. And the other thing that's really important, and you guys probably know this already, although I adopted a team that was really undisciplined and weak, and it took about 2 years. By the third year, the culture had shifted. Everybody who's now a junior, this is their third year with me, they knew the expectations. It was hardcore. I was a real hard ass my second year. I mean, kicking people off, sending people home because they just weren't doing it the way I wanted it to do. And then it all changed. I didn't have to say anything anymore. It became real easy. And because the upperclassmen set the tone, and all the new people, all the new kids coming in, they just said, okay, this is the way we do it here. This is the culture. We work really hard. And we rest and joke around when we're recovering, but we work really hard. And that's just the culture of the program. And we just became tough as nails. And like I said, we didn't win championships much. In fact, Colorado is very different. Colorado, you go to state by being the top 18 ranked. So you could have 16 kids from one school if you wanted to. So it wasn't by top 2 finishes or anything. So that just changes things a little bit. So I didn't really ever try to win any meets because they were insignificant. Because it was always, how do we get to state? How do we get as many kids as possible to state? So that's the way I work my team. But anyway, so like I said, state 4x4 champion the first season, second season, or just a picture of one of my teams on the top. Okay. I'm curious, anybody else do anything similar at your school? Okay. And you agree that it helps the culture? Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Now, if everybody starts doing it, then it's not going to work anymore. But, so, okay, another thing that I highly recommend to help you with your season is to start your first week with some aptitude testing. Okay, and I talk about it in a video on my YouTube channel, but there's no exact way to do it. It's basically just saying, hey, we're just going to try to identify, certainly from the new kids who are in our program, who can do what, right? Because think about it, in track and field, a lot of times what coaches do, they'll put a kid in there, and they'll put them in a race, and go, that wasn't their race. Next week we'll put them in another race. And you keep trying them in different races, or maybe you get an idea this is good for them, you start taking weeks and weeks to start dialing it down, and sometimes you're towards the end of the season before you figure out, oh, this is what you're good at. Next year, this is what we're going to do. You could have figured that out early if you just done some aptitude testing. And so, and there are some out there, and I even give some ideas on here, and we could talk about this, but the truth is it's really simple. You're going to want to look, so you make stations, right? You're going to want to see who your jumpers are. And you could do just a vertical jump, you could do a standing long jump. If you wanted to look at elasticity, maybe you could figure out, like, okay, we're going to give them a board that's really wide, so it doesn't matter if they hit it or not, and then just see how far they can jump. Or you can have them do like double and triple jumps to see, again, the elasticity, who's got what. But you want to just run everybody through and then rank them. Or you can even put all their scores down and compare them to kids from previous years if you do this every year. And you can say, hey, wow, this kid's really good because they're as good as Joni was 3 years ago, and she was really good at this, so this kind of tells me they're good at that. You could do, to find out if they have power in their upper body, you could throw a shot put, but the problem with shot put or discus is there's obviously so much technique involved. So you want to find something that takes no technique, but still measures the same type of output. So if they just held a shot put by their chest, or a medicine ball, and you gave them a line, you say, all you got to do is go like this and throw it as far as you can. I'm going to give you 3 times, and you just measure, and then you go, okay, I got a thrower on my hands, right? You could do the same thing with sprints. All these are designed to figure out how to find raw talent without having to be really skilled at it. So a 30-meter fly would be good for that, because even if they're bad on a start, doesn't matter. So you have a start over here, you have somebody right here, you measure it out 30 meters away, put another cone there, and you just tell them, hey, you're going to run through, you want to hit full speed by the time you're here, you want to run full speed from here to here, and you've got somebody over here, or timing, however you want to do it. So you can put your whole team through and find out who has the best top-end speed and rank them. Say, okay, these are my sprinters or whatever. And then hurdle introduction. I'm going to go through this a lot tomorrow, later today, after this. So I'm not going to cover it in depth here, but basically in this one here, I would recommend space permitting. The problem is, in your state, my understanding is the first week of school, you're probably not out on the track. First week of track, you're probably indoors. Am I right? Okay. So it's not as if you're going to take the 4 lanes of the track. So let's figure out, maybe it's in the hallway. So maybe what you do is in the hallway, you just get some little barriers, and you put them, just like 8 paces and you run everybody through it. And then all the ones who suck at it, you say, go do something else. All the ones who are liking it, you spread them out a little bit more, and you just keep doing this and maybe raising up the hurdles until you finally go, hey, these 6 kids seem like they could be pretty good at this if I taught them how to do it, right? And then maybe they're gonna like it. It's a great way to identify who has a natural ability or who's too timid or what, or just too uncoordinated. Just weed out the others and select your hurdlers there. And then you're gonna wanna find your distance runners. And my experience, and certainly in modern times, kids are so out of shape, unless they're in shape, that if you ask them to go run a mile, they're gonna jog at such a slow pace that you don't really get a feel for what running a mile is like. So if you can just have everybody run an 800, you'll probably have a better chance of at least identifying, okay, these kids here probably could be mid-distance runners, right? But somehow, by running your kids through these different stations, you will jump weeks ahead, at least, in identifying who should be doing what. And it will save you a lot of time. Does anybody do anything similar to that on your team? Okay, so look around, at least a third of the people here. Good. Anybody want to, I would love to hear if you do any, and it could be helpful for the team, what do you do differently? Yeah.
The first week we do rookie testing.
Cool.
So we already know our veterans, the rookies are coming in, first year, 8th, 9th graders. We do 2 days of rookie testing to see who can do a 400, who can do an 800, who can do raw jumps, and then go from there.
Okay, great. Any other ideas? Yeah.
We do a few other ones. We also do like 1-step triple jump. We do for discus, we do cone throw, and so it doesn't fly as far, but can identify who can throw in a discus manner, rotate better.
A cone.
A cone, yeah.
They're
Like
holding a cone.
like an orange cone, yep.
And they do.
But no,
like-
you hold it just like you
Oh, I'm sorry,
you'd be doing a
okay.
discus,
Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
it just doesn't fly as far. And if it hits a wall, it hits a wall. It's not
Yeah.
not gonna break anything.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
We call ours our pentathlon,
Okay.
and so then the kids just know the challenge, and then we'll pull out like the top people, we'll identify the top 9th graders and the top returning varsity kids and have a celebration.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Any other? Yeah.
Our town splits up real nicely in quadrants, so basically we'll split them up into 4 different teams: white, black, blue, and silver. And then basically every one of these events, we have a few different events, is worth a certain amount of points. So then they're participating within their team, within a team. And they're kind of rooting for each other. So you have a lot of people that are good at the field events, and the sprinters are cheering for their blue teammates. And then we have an overall winner, of the competition at the end as well. So we can both track the metrics, but also create a little bit of team cohesion amongst the seniors all the way down to the freshmen. Worked out really
Cool. Cool. Any others? Yeah.
We do a pentathlon, but we just assign points. I've done it in the past where then there's the best, gives you your best athlete.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
We do the pentathlon too, and then first place gets 100 points and so on, and then you have your averages, and then we keep track from year to year, like who our best marks were, and we can, you set a new record,
Yeah.
and so the day after we always do
Great.
an awards celebration.
Yeah. Okay. This is awesome. This is what I was actually hoping that we could share as a group, and I can kind of facilitate some things. Excellent. All right. This part is going to be interesting. So, this is also what I learned becoming a high school coach, is how many injuries there are. Mostly lower leg injuries, shin splints. And it just felt to me, first again, I thought, okay, these kids are just wimps. I mean, probably because their mom and dad drive them to school every day. I don't know what. I just couldn't believe how soft they were, right? And they were always getting injured. But the other thing is, even as second year, third year, fourth year was going on, I was still having kids hurt all the time. And me with my background in sports sciences, I kept thinking, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. I was researching all the time, talking to people. What do you do about this? What do you do about that? Asking other coaches. And I never came up with anything good, And when you read about shin splints, it talks about, oh, it's doing too much too soon, and if you keep doing, then you will, eventually work past it. That wasn't my experience. Usually when a kid gets shin splints, they deal with it for the rest of the season, and they're all taping up or whatever. So, again, I tried so many different things. It's insane. But one year, two things happened. Well, there's some changes that I made all at the same time that changed everything. Okay, now, can't wait to see how this goes. Okay, first is we stopped stretching. We stopped stretching, certainly for a warm-up, okay? When I say stretching, definitely no passive stretching, but we didn't even do any dynamic stretching. Or we did dynamic warm-ups, and I'll tell you the difference between the two, but we just stopped stretching. And every time a kid, is like, oh, my calves are tight, so, they want to stretch their calves. Or their hamstrings are tight, they want to stretch their hamstrings. Or their quads are tight, so they do this, right? That's what everybody does, right? Okay. If the muscle is tight, you stretch it. Well, I learned something from somebody. Anybody ever heard of muscle activation? Okay, yeah, okay. So I met another coach who was certified in a thing called muscle activation as a muscle activation therapist, which I'm not, by the way. I'm not pitching anything, I promise you. And she worked with some of my athletes, and it was remarkable. And here's the concept to my brain of how it works. When a muscle is tight, it's tight because it's overworking. And it's overworking because other muscles, usually around that joint or somewhere in the chain, are not doing their job. So that muscle is having to do extra work to support the other muscles that are not working. That's why that muscle is tight. Does that make sense? So it's like, okay. Now, the thing is, when you stretch a muscle, you basically relax that muscle, and it kind of knocks it out for hours in its ability to contract on demand and contract very powerfully. So, for example, if your quad's tight, it's because possibly somewhere up in your hips, those muscles aren't doing their work, your lower back or your hamstrings are not doing their work. So it's having to work overtime as the workhorse, the champion here. So if you now stretch it and you basically give it a sedative, and now you go try to run, you have so much instability in your hip and somewhere in your body that you are setting yourself up for injuries. So what you're supposed to do, and I'm probably going to frustrate more of you than anything because I'm not actually going to give you the answers right here because it's very difficult. But what you're supposed to do instead of relaxing that muscle is try to reactivate the other muscles that aren't doing their job, right? So what we did, we had a warm-up. I evolved this warm-up over time, but it always started off with some muscle activation techniques, which is basically to do isometric contractions for the sake of tightening the muscle and then making it ready to go. Okay. So the main one is the glutes, right? Anytime you stretch a muscle for a lot or for a while, it could just, like I said, go to sleep. So if you've been sitting in a chair all day in class, you could have glute muscles that are not ready to go work. So the very first thing my kids did is they just stand here like this. And you might think that they're just standing around doing nothing, but they're actually tightening their butt muscles. And we would go through, sets of tightening the butt muscles. And then they would just stand here and like try to pull their feet out, like if you were ripping a paper this way. So I'm doing that right now, but you can't tell because my feet can't move on the ground, but I'm working these muscles here. Then they would squeeze the muscles here, so then they tighten here. Then they would hold their leg up here, then give themselves some pressure here while they tighten their hip flexor, right? Do the same thing on both legs. So now these muscles are fired up, ready to go. And then we would go through mobility circles, like ankles, knees, hips, more hips, low back, spine, shoulders, right? Move, work our way all up our body, taking all of your joints and moving them, because through circles, because what that does, and this is a whole nother concept. Now we're away from muscle activation. I don't even remember what this one is called, but it's sending signals to your brain that, okay, my ankles are good, my knees are good, my hips are good, my spine is good, my shoulders are good. And then once your brain knows that everything is good, your flexibility, all of a sudden you have flexibility, right? It's really cool. And then we would go through a dynamic warm-up. But our dynamic warm-up is similar to some things you might see, but there's some things we don't do. Like, we never would do anything fast that would create momentum, right? Like, we would never do leg swings. Probably a lot of people do leg swings, right? Or we would never do this really fast leg kicking or anything like that. Because anytime you swing you swing your limb, and it's, so now a muscle is being stretched, not because let me back up a little bit, okay? So let's say I want to relax or stretch my hamstring, okay? If I go like this, now I'm stretching it, but gravity's pulling my chest down, and it's making this stretch. It's not because any muscle fired to make it stretch. Does that make sense? Or if somebody stretches my leg, same thing. If I put my leg on a fence, same thing. The fence is holding my leg up. It's not as if my other muscles are firing to hold my leg up. All of those situations where a muscle is being stretched and there's no other opposing muscle doing the work to make it stretch, you follow me? That's a problem. And that's when your muscles want to disengage, okay? So, if we want to stretch our hamstrings, it's up, extend, down, up, extend, down. Hip flexors are firing, quads are firing, so you have what's called reciprocal inhibition, which means the muscle on the other side is now relaxing to allow you to extend. So you can now work on range of motion without passively stretching a muscle. Does that make sense? So our dynamic warm-ups were a lot of things like that. It was right like this, and then up like this, and then reaching back like this. And everybody's kind of going like this. If they're going like this, then I'm like, slow down, slow down. And if they're doing this, slow down, slow down. So that type of thing, it changed. Now, I'm convinced that helped it. So we stopped stretching. Even at the end, we never did. Again, we would do like big circles, and we would do all the open the gate, close the gate stuff. All that's great, as long as it's slow and controlled. The other thing that we did that dramatically changed it, before I do that, let me just say with my sprinters, and again, I tried so many things, and I ended up finding, like, it felt like we were having to, but you know what? I'm going to stop right there for a second. How many people have anything to add about what I just said about stretching? Let's see if I'm the only one in here. Yeah.
One thing that we've incorporated just for shin issues is doing something like that with bands.
Yeah.
We take bands and we do different position for the shins, and we hold them like you're kind of doing in a position, but we're using motion. And we do some of those things, and I've found that our shin splint issues have dramatically dropped.
Yeah.
Because our trainer came to me and he's like, we got to do something different because you got these kids coming down to the training room all the time, and I can't help them because there's too many of them.
Yeah.
And that's helped us a lot, just using bands to do some of that same thing. They hold it out and they nice and slow, and they have slow motions, and they work the band and do different things that way.
Yeah, we would walk on our heels to tighten those muscles. We'd walk, tighten, just all about firing up muscles. Yeah. Any other? I would love to hear any other things. Yeah.
I just think in any sport, when a kid has confidence in their technique,
they have a lot better chance. There's kids that make a great effort, that have no technique,
Yeah.
that get depressed because they're trying really hard, the coach is saying you're not doing stuff right, you're not finding success. So when you slow it down, like what you're talking about, instead of the dynamic,
Yeah.
you can look at that technique, and they can see each other too, and see how to do it right with the ones that are doing it correct.
Yeah.
When you got all your kids going, you see teams do that, there's lines going and kids are just flailing around.
Yeah. It's not important.
Activity, but not.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. The other thing that we did that same year, the big change we made, is our sprinters. Everybody 400 down, we stopped running consecutive days. We would go Monday, and so we'd go Monday, and then no running on Tuesday, Wednesday, no running on Thursday, we'd just be in the weight room. And then an easy workout on Friday, let's say we're racing on Saturday, in that scenario, right? It changed things a lot, because it used to be that I wanted to work them out at this intensity level, but they kept getting hurt, so I'd only have to train them at this intensity level. But when I did this really hard, and then give them a day, at least a day to rest, and then do it again, I could push them as hard as I wanted. In fact, they stopped hurting, and a lot of them wanted more. You know, it's like they almost became indestructible by not doing 2 days in a row of speed stuff, or even pounding at all. My distance runners, we would run every day. 800 somewhere in the middle, but that's what we did. Yeah.
Are you talking preseason or throughout the season?
Sprinters, all the time.
You just said, okay.
All the time, even in the middle of the season. Yeah. Yes.
So your non-run days, like you said, weight room was one example. What else?
Well, we'd be in the weight room, or yeah, that's pretty much what we were doing. Or we might go be in the hallway and we're doing just some mobility stuff. Yeah,
So
a
weights
lot
and
of
mobility.
core work. A lot of core work. Yes.
Jumpers who were also sprinters, was that taking place on run days or off days?
Yeah, we wouldn't do any sprinting on the other days. So we packed it all into one day, and then gave them a full day of recovery, and then packed it all into one day, which I could talk about in a little bit.
Did you
Yes.
watch film on those days?
Yes, that's another good thing, watching film, yeah, do that kind of stuff too. On the Tuesdays and Thursdays, if those are your days. I know everybody's different. That's the impossibility to give a perfect training plan for everybody, because I'm gonna have 5 people go, well, what about, we do 3 meets a week, it's impossible. I can give you like a philosophy, and then you figure out how to apply it to your situation, okay? So we stopped stretching, and then we only did all this stuff only 2 days a week. And then the 3rd day of the week was the meet, right? So that was it. You would think that, they're not gonna be in good shape, or they're not gonna be, no, it was the other way around. You could work them so hard on those days, and they weren't hurt. And so you're not dealing with a kid who you look at and you go, I can only push them so hard because the shin splints are gonna fire up, so took care of that. So now, let me see how I'm doing on time. Okay. So I'm gonna kind of get to your question over there. If we were to look at it like this, again, this is the dream scenario when you can train all week and only have one meet. In fact, I'll tell you what, in my world, we would only race every 2 weeks, if we could. Reason being is if you race really hard on a Saturday, depending on your event, it could take 3-4 days for your body to really recover from that. So do you want to do a hard workout on Monday when you've only had 1 day to recover from a really hard 800 or 1600 or multiple 400s or 300 hurdles and something, or anything that needs recovery? So if I had my way, I would and the weather were perfect all the time. We would train through a 2-week cycle, have all the recovery built in, and every 2 weeks we'd have this amazing performance. But you can't bank on that, right? You got to schedule meets all the time, and maybe your AD is giving you all these meets. That's what I'm hearing from other people. So you just have to get, and this is where there's an art and there's a science to coaching. You just have to figure it out. But if you were going to go once a week, this is generally the way you do it. If you worked a kid really hard here, you would have to take this day a little easier, okay? And then make this the hardest day of training of the week on the track, Wednesday. If they had an easy meet, then you can go hard. It's up to you. Let's say, because I get asked this question, because I taught in Illinois last week, and somebody was asking, they said, what if we race, sometimes we have 3 meets in a week? I said, I would never do that. I mean, why would you even set yourself up for that? I can't see the point. But, so if you were to do that, I still wouldn't have a kid race more than once a week. You know, I would only take a fraction of the team to the different meets, and the other ones would have to do, if they had to come along for supervision, they would just go to the side, find a soccer field or something and do a workout while we were at the track or something. I've done that before. Or, because I have been in situations where we would have a JV meet on a Tuesday or Wednesday, on the varsity meet on a Friday or Saturday. Maybe I wanted to work on handoffs for 4x1, or maybe I wanted a 100, 110 meter hurdler to have another repetition. I would have them do that in the JV meet, but just one little quick race. And then I'll say, okay, now go over there to that soccer field and do this workout, right? So you just got to find a way, right, when you're a track coach to make it work. I would love to hear thoughts on this, because there's probably days and days of philosophies on this. Yeah.
So I do kind of the same with mine, guys. Like if we're at an away meet, I'll take team bus, they'll come with, because then that's part of the team too, and that culture, and then they get to cheer on even the under guys too.
Yeah.
And so they get to feel that sense from the varsity guys with that. They get to work out in.
Yeah, good. Any other?
My question is, like, so if you're doing it that way, what energy systems are you hitting on the Monday, the Wednesday, the Friday? Like, how are you organizing that?
Okay. That's something I'm going to talk more about at my next one tomorrow, but when I do the raising of hands things, not a lot of people, like how many people are coming to my one tomorrow? Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have a slide built to answer this question, but let me go into it. Okay. So, what do I have on this? No, this is too high level. Okay. All right. So this is very visual, so I wish I had built multiple slides for this. But again, you know, you learn things over the years. You know, I stumbled into this training system. It was designed by a guy named Lyle Knutson. Probably none of you have ever heard of him. One of my coaches found him on some running magazine, just some obscure article. And she reached out to him, and he had these bizarre training methods. It was while I was coaching cross country as well. And I thought, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. He didn't go through periodization. It was speed. It was short distances, just speed focused all the time and all year long, but just going through these odd cycles. And I thought, there's no way this is going to work. So I did it with my cross country team, and I'll tell you, they were not good kids. I didn't have a good cross country team at all. Talk about like the least athletic kids in the school. These kids were terrible. I put them through this system. I was shocked by what happened. My girls' team, and they were the worst, they went to the state championship. And they all peaked at the right time. They were amazing. They went from being these girls who were running like this all the time to running hard and doing repeats at practice and just repeating it over and over, and I couldn't believe it. So I said, okay, and I went back to this guy, and I bought his program, and I applied it to 100, 200, 400, 800, and I've trained for the rest of my career in high school. That's the kind of workouts that we did. And I can show you how to see it in a little while, but basically, here's the way it goes. Okay. If I can describe this. Okay, for every distance that you race at, let's say that you are a 400-meter runner, leave it in the middle. You go through these 2-week cycles, and on the first day, we train what's called over distance. So if you're a 400 runner, then you have 800, then you have 1600. So they were doing repeats at 1600-meter pace. So talk about energy systems there, right? So 1600-meter pace, a bunch of repeats like that with a very short rest. So they might be doing, for example, and there's a billion and one ways to put this together, but for the simplicity, let's say they were doing 600-meter repeats at 1600-meter pace with a 30 to 60 second recovery between them. Then they get a day rest. And the next day they do what's called under. So you go from 400, 200, 100. So they're doing repeats at 100-meter pace, which is two levels under what they race at. And they were short, and they were fast, but lots of rest period between them. And they would do that. So they had their endurance, their speed endurance, and then their speed. And you come back for the third week, and you go over distance. So now they're training at 800-meter pace, and doing repeats at 800-meter pace. Then 2 days later, now they're at 200-meter pace. 2 days later, now they're doing repeats at 400-meter pace, which is their race. And then they have 2 days, and then they race. So it's a 2-week cycle. It's genius. I couldn't believe how good it did. My kids were healthy, they were strong, they all peaked at the end of the season when you wanted to do it. So everybody was on the same system. I don't know what it's called. He's dead now. I reached out to his son to say, hey, I want to do something with this. He goes, my dad he didn't put anything online, nothing was digital. So I'll show you. I got something if you want to see it. But that answer your question. That's how everybody does all the energy systems, but suited for their racing. And so, yeah, part of the reason why I could have so many good 4x4s and 4x8s because everybody was doing everything. And it was pretty cool. But in addition to that, in general, I don't recommend your sprinters do a lot of speed work in the first few weeks of the season. This right here I could say is too below you guys. So I'm just going to go through this really fast. Even though we didn't go through cycles, let me explain back to this over, under cycle type thing. Even though you did that all year long, the intensity was not the same all year long because you could go through almost like themes, right? So if you want it to be easy, like in the preseason or beginning of the season, you do what's called sets and reps. So you might, let's say for example, you wanted your kids to do 12 repetitions of 300s. You could do 6 of them and then take a 5-minute break and then do 6 more. That's early season stuff. Mid-season stuff, and you're trying to really build the kids up, you might be doing what are called step-ups. So they start short and they get longer and longer and longer and longer. Or even harder, one's called down-up. So you start at, let's say for example, you're doing 200 or 400-meter repeats. I take that back. Let's say you're running 800-meter pace. You could be doing 400 meters, 350, 300, 250, 150, 200, 150, then build your way back up. That's brutal. To work down that ladder and then go back up, brutal. But that's what I would do with my kids about 2/3 into the season. I want them psychologically to feel like if I can make it through this, I can make it through anything. So by the time we're getting to the end of the season, and they were 2 weeks out from where I wanted to peak, and again, this is where the art of coaching comes into place. And if I got a kid who I feel pretty confident is going to state, I'm gonna delay this for another few weeks. But if I have a kid whose season is gonna be over in 2 weeks, and they're still, state 2 weeks later, I'm gonna start them then. And then they do step down. So they start the hardest and it gets easier, 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 easier. So even though cumulatively it's the same workout, the way you put it together changes the intensity dramatically, even psychologically. And that's how we would cycle through the seasons to get them to peak at the end. So, do you guys kind of follow me on that? Cool. Another thing that I always did, you guys know who Bill Bowerman is, right? The thing that when I read his book that I liked the most is the way he said he wants everybody to finish every practice feeling invigorated. Meaning tired, yes, really tired, yes, but not exhausted and never feeling mentally like that was too hard. Because if they keep repeating that, then they have a negative association with running. Plus even physically it's probably not good, you're not getting enough recovery. You want them to go so hard that they're drained, but they're loving it. That's what you want. So what that means is, let's say I have my team here and I say, here's the workout today, and I tell them my workout. I let everybody knows this. This is what I want you to do ideally. If this is too hard for you, don't try to just keep up with Johnny, because that means that's too hard for you, because you're not at his level. You do what feels right for you. If it's feeling too hard, you come for me. I'll show you how to adjust this workout. So everybody's doing a little bit different workout, and you just learn how to do that over time. And you got kids who are going, Coach, it wasn't enough. I want more. Okay, let me give you more, right? And so if you train everybody like that, everybody progresses. Okay, this is just a picture of my team screaming for the 4x4. That's why I love this picture. Just to walk away with something here. This isn't related to you, but you could tell your favorite track coach that on my website I have this free thing called a hurdle technique and drill guide. And this is because I do a ton of technique analysis, right? So coaches, parents, athletes will send me their videos. And they will say, look at my video to tell me what do I need to do to get better. That's what, at Ace Method Coaching, that's a chunk of what I do. Because all I do is coach online now. I should have talked about that earlier, but anyway. So I put together a spreadsheet of everything that I'm looking for as I'm going through technique on a hurdler, saying here's what to look for, here's what it should look like, here's what the common mistakes are, and here's what you can do to improve it. This is what cues to give them, this is what drills to do. It's free, it's a free download, so tell them to go to acemethodcoaching.com, go to the hurdle page, and your coach can get this, okay? If you're interested in what I talked about there, the whole under, over thing, I put together, just this summer, those ideas, and I have every track workout from 100 meters, 200, 400, 800, 16, 32, everything, and have all those workouts for an entire 12-week season, and it goes through all that same thing that I just told you about. All done for you. Lyle Knudsen would be very excited to know that his philosophies are being shared for generations. But if you want that, it's there. Normally, it would be $189, but right now, I have it for $99 if you're interested. But let me just tell you, it will, if you're interested in this, it will save you so, trust me. It took me years to assemble all these philosophies and put them together into something that works for all events for high schoolers. And so it's easily worth it. So, I'll go back if anybody wants to snap that. So, that is a perfect 1 hour right there. It's 2 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions or anything you want to add or bring up from some of the craziness that I've had?
When you give the aptitude testing to every single kid, does every single testing?
Okay. Again, that's where you get to the art of coaching, right?
Okay.
If you got a kid who obviously, you got a big, heavy kid, you're not going to be a distance runner, so I'm not going to make you run 800, or vice versa, right? So just figure it out, you know. But in general, you try to get most kids through most events, but be reasonable. Oh, you know what? One thing I kind of did want to bring up, I'll be curious to see what you guys think about this. Because I always wanted a team, right? It felt like a team. I was doing everything to make a team. I really never figured out how to incorporate throwers into the whole team. Because it's so different. I mean, I wanted all my team at the track cheering for everybody in every race, but the throwers are off somewhere else, they're practicing else, and we kept trying it, and it felt unfair to make them stick around for the 4x4 when none of us went to watch them throw. So I finally gave up, and I said, you guys are pretty much like your own team. And I hired a coach, and I told him from the beginning, you're gonna be like your own team. You're the coach, and those are your athletes. Pretty much have your own season. We're all getting together for socials and stuff. You don't need to warm up with this, and it worked. But anybody, like, any other thoughts on that?
We let our throwers bring grills and everything, and then everyone wants to go out there and get the steaks and the burgers.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. Yes.
We have, at our home meets, we have a throwers relay, and it could be mixed boys or girls.
Yeah.
And it's a great time for us to cheer them on because we don't always get to go cheer them.
I like those. Yeah.
We've done a couple of throwers meets. It's just the throwers.
Yeah.
Different schools bring their throwers. There's no other stuff going on.
That's cool.
And so that's the main focus. And your kids that don't always get reps can, we got time to get them reps and stuff.
I like that. Yes.
If we can't connect with your QR code, how else could we get that deal?
Okay. Sure. Just go to my website.
Okay.
It's there. Yeah. Is it not working?
No. It didn't connect.
Okay. I think I know why. I think it's too blurry. Okay. Anyway, acemethodcoaching.com. Go to the coaches section and you'll find us there. Or just go into the shop. It's there. You'll find some other cool stuff. Feel free. Okay. If there's not any other questions, thank you. You've been an awesome audience. You have a good clinic.
I'll tell you what I experienced over my years. Yes. I throw in some short sprints. Because otherwise, at the first time they sprint at an instrument track, they all and I'm like, I just can't.
Yeah, I grew my hair out.
So I usually that short test. The first time I was yeah, right. Young kids. Yeah.
Oh, I tell them. So they're just
I want you fast, but not your fastest. And then I try to like really,